Rain had followed Nathan Finch for over 50 miles. Not a storm, not thunder or wind, just a quiet, steady downpour that clung to the windshield in sheets, never quite hard enough to be dangerous, but never letting up. The road curled through the trees like a black ribbon, slick with rain and lined by the kinds of pines that seemed older than time. His GPS had stopped working 20 minutes ago. Still, he kept driving. He wasn't sure what made him accept the offer. The letter had come out of nowhere, a legal envelope with a brittle gold seal, postmarked from Black Hollow, a town Nathan had never heard of. The name itself felt like something from a dime novel. But the message was clear. An unknown relative, a great-aunt named Corinne, had passed. He was her sole living heir. She'd left him her home and everything inside. "You are the last of the Finch line," the letter read in looping ink. "The house is yours now. Please come before the rain washes everything away." He hadn't thought much of it. Maybe a scam, maybe a weird inheritance quirk, but curiosity and desperation made strange bedfellows. Nathan's apartment lease was up. His job was a dead end. His girlfriend had walked out 6 months ago. He had nowhere else to go. So now the forest thickened around his car, the rain tapping in patterns on the roof. Almost rhythmic. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, 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 like a knock. The road ended suddenly. No signs, just a split rail fence, rotted and overgrown, and a rusted gate barely standing upright. Beyond it, he saw the outline of the house, dark, tall, and impossible. The house looked like it had been built before the trees, wooden, grey, and leaning slightly to the left, as though time had nudged it, but it refused to fall. 3 stories, steep gables, and windows like black eyes. Nathan turned off the engine. The rain stopped at that exact moment. Not slowed, stopped. The silence was instant. No drip from the trees, no wind, just a dead hush. He stepped out. Gravel crunched beneath his boots. The gate opened with a whine, and he felt the air grow colder as he passed through. The house was silent. No birds, no animals. The key had been included in the envelope, a long, rusted iron thing. It fit the front door like a hand into a glove. Nathan turned it. The door opened inward with a long groan. And the house breathed. He swore it did. A cold draft, like lungs exhaling, swept over him. He stepped inside. The interior was preserved in dust. Wallpaper peeled at the corners. The furniture looked untouched for decades. High-backed chairs, a long grandfather clock, a velvet couch sunken in the middle. Dozens of picture frames lined the hallway walls. All the faces had been scratched out. There was no electricity. Just a cold fireplace and an old oil lamp sitting on a table near the door. He lit it. The flame danced, revealing details the dim light outside had hidden. Tall doorways, a staircase that spiraled up into blackness, floors creaking under every step like the house winced with movement. He wandered into the parlour. A mirror over the fireplace caught his reflection. He looked gaunt, thinner than he remembered, paler, but the reflection, something was off. A fraction of a second behind his movements, like it had to catch up. He turned away. At the edge of the room sat a roll-top desk. On it, a letter, newer than anything else in the house. The envelope was sealed with the same brittle gold wax. He opened it. Inside, a single line, handwritten in dark red ink. "Do not stay past the 3rd rain." Nathan frowned. A prank? A threat? But the handwriting, it was the same as the inheritance letter. He searched the house until night fell. It had no working lights, no modern appliances, no phone. Just oil lamps, old books, and portraits of people who no longer had faces. Still, something in the house felt familiar, like a dream he'd forgotten until he stepped through the door. As darkness swallowed the trees outside, he lit a fire in the hearth and pulled a heavy quilt from the couch. The bedroom upstairs was too dark. He didn't feel like climbing those creaking stairs just yet. The storm returned as he drifted into sleep. Rain against the windows, wind slipping through cracks in the walls. And somewhere above him, on the top floor, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Slow, bare, careful. Nathan sat up, held his breath. Silence. One knock, directly above him. A single heavy knock on the floor of the room overhead. Tap. Nathan didn't sleep. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling where the knock had come from. The sound hadn't repeated, but he swore he could feel movement. Quiet steps, like someone pacing. He gripped the old fireplace poker and waited for morning. By sunrise, the rain had stopped. A light mist clung to the forest outside. He decided to investigate the upstairs. The steps groaned under his weight. The hallway at the top was narrow, lit by a single window coated in years of grime. 5 doors lined the hall. 4 opened with ease, to dust-choked guest rooms and 1 ancient bathroom. The 5th door was locked. He knelt. The brass handle was cold. He tried the iron key that opened the front door. It didn't fit. Then he noticed something strange. Beneath the door, a trail of dark water had seeped through the wood. Not fresh. Sticky. Almost like sap. He didn't force it. Instead, he explored the rest of the house. In the attic, he found trunks full of dresses and moth-eaten suits, yellowed letters tied in twine, and dozens of sketches. Charcoal drawings of the same house, over and over, always at dusk, always with a single black figure standing in the upstairs window. In the basement he found jars, rows of them, stacked on sagging shelves. Not preserves, not paint. Hair, teeth, fingernails. 1 jar was filled with cloudy water and a single glass eye. He fled the basement. That night the rain returned. He tried to sleep in the master bedroom. The bed creaked under his weight, but it felt cleaner than the couch. Around 3 a.m. he was jolted awake. Footsteps in the hallway. Then 3 sharp knocks on the locked door. He sat up. The rain intensified. Then behind the door a voice, a woman's, soft and steady. "Nathan, you came home." He didn't open the door. He backed into the corner of the room, heart slamming against his ribs. The voice didn't speak again. At dawn, the locked door was open, just a crack, enough to show a slice of dark room beyond. He pushed it open slowly. The room was colder than the rest of the house. A layer of frost covered the inside of the window pane. The wallpaper had rotted away, revealing a massive symbol carved directly into the wooden wall. A circle with jagged branching lines extending outward like veins or lightning bolts. Beneath it, in smeared ink, were the words, "The Rainkeeper remembers." There was no furniture, no dust. Just that sigil and a faint echo of something metallic. He turned to leave, but before he did, he noticed a crack in the floorboards. From it, water seeped, clear, but smelling faintly of iron. He pried the board loose. Inside was a tin box. Inside the box, a letter and a lock of silver hair. The letter was addressed to dearest Nathaniel. He had never been called that. "You are the last. When it rains, he listens. When it pours, he remembers. When the 3rd storm comes, he walks. Do not speak to her. Do not answer the knock. Do not open the door at night." Nathan looked up. There were 3 doors in the hallway now. There had only been 5 total yesterday. Now there were 6. The newest one was at the end, unpainted, damp, breathing. The storm didn't stop for 3 days. Nathan stayed inside, rationing the canned food he found in the pantry, lighting oil lamps at dusk, and avoiding the end of the hallway. But the door whispered to him. Not words, just a sound, like wet cloth sliding over skin. On the 3rd night, lightning struck a tree nearby. The thunder rattled the entire house. Then, silence. Then a slow, loud knock on the end door. "Nathan," the woman's voice called again, closer now. "Don't make me knock again." He sat against the bedroom door, blocking it with a chair. In the mirror across from him, his reflection smiled without him. He spent the next day reading old journals from the attic. One entry was written in a tight, frantic script. "Corinne says the house isn't haunted. It's alive. It grows when it rains. Rooms appear. Doors change. She says if I hear her knock, I mustn't answer. But I want to know what's behind the last door." The last page simply said, "I opened it." That night, the rain turned red. It ran down the windows like blood. Thunder rolled from beneath the ground. And in the hallway, all the doors stood open, except the last. It stood closed, pulsing like a heartbeat. When Nathan passed by, the doorknob turned by itself, and the door slowly creaked open. Inside, darkness and a whisper, "Come see what she left you." Inside the room was a staircase, spiraling down, far deeper than the foundation should allow. He descended. Each step felt heavier. At the bottom was a circular chamber lined with mirrors, tall, old, fogged. Each one showed Nathan at a different age. But in the last mirror he saw someone else. A woman, tall, pale, hollow eyes. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. The chamber shook. From the darkness behind the mirrors something stirred. "The Rainkeeper is awake," said a voice that came from all directions. Nathan ran. When he reached the top of the stairs again, the door was gone. Only a wall remained, and the sound of dripping water and footsteps behind him. The storm ended on the 5th day. Nathan tried to leave, but the road was gone. Only trees remained, endless, twisting. No matter which way he turned, the house found him again. He returned to the attic, looked through the mirror over the fireplace. His reflection no longer matched him. It blinked when he didn't. It raised a hand to the glass and smiled. Then it whispered, "The third rain is inside you now." That night, he finally opened the last door willingly and stepped through. The house closed behind him, waiting for the next Finch, waiting for the next rain. I wasn't supposed to inherit anything. I was the last Finch in a family that had spent decades forgetting itself. Estranged relatives, scattered obituaries, no photos on the mantel. So when the attorney's letter arrived, crisp and yellowed at the edges, I assumed it was a mistake. To Mr. Isaac Finch, sole remaining kin of the Harlow estate. A name I didn't recognize. But something in me, perhaps desperation, perhaps instinct, told me to go. The house sat outside a forgotten town in the Pacific Northwest called Rook's Hollow. Population, 187. The place where cell signals went to die and the rain never stopped whispering through the trees. I drove 4 hours through winding forest roads and parked before a gate that hadn't been opened in decades. Rust flaked off the hinges as I pushed it open by hand. And there it was, a towering Victorian mansion shrouded in vines, moss coating the roof like green fur, shutters hanging at odd angles. But it wasn't the house that chilled me. It was the sound. From behind the house, carried on the wind, came a low, wet, dragging sound, like something was being pulled across damp stone. Inside, the house was silent and heavy. It didn't smell like rot, more like time had folded in on itself. There were no lights, no hum of electricity, just oil lamps, some already lit. A fire had been set in the hearth, still crackling. That was impossible. I called out, but no one answered. The walls were lined with paintings, portraits of pale, thin people with long faces and eyes that followed me no matter where I stood. Some had names, Thaddeus, Eleanor, Marcus. No Finch among them. There were rooms I didn't want to enter. One on the second floor had a door that pulsed gently, like something behind it was breathing in rhythm with the wind. I passed it without looking in, and always, from the backyard, that dragging sound. I finally followed the noise, crossing the overgrown garden path out back. It led me to a stone well at the centre of the property, choked in ivy, stones dark with rain. I leaned over. At first I saw nothing. Then a shimmer, like oil on water, and a whisper, not from below but behind me. Thirsty I turned, but no one was there. I fled inside, locking the back door. But that night, the dream came. I stood at the well again, but this time the world was silent. Even the wind was gone. The sky was colourless, grey, flat, wrong. And from within the well a hand reached up, thin, bone-white, clawed. It didn't grab me, it just pointed toward the woods. I turned to follow its gesture, and awoke in bed, soaked in sweat, the sheets twisted around my legs. Someone had placed a glass of water on the nightstand. I hadn't done that. Over the next few days I stayed. Why? Curiosity. A strange magnetism. Something held me in place. I explored more of the house. The attic was filled with journals, generations of Harlows writing about the thirst, the old water, and something called the bottomless guest. One entry chilled me. It lives in the well, but not below. It lives between time and floorboards. It doesn't drink water. It drinks memory, breath, and the shape of people. Another, if you see yourself at the window, don't wave back. I laughed at first. But the laughter didn't last. Because the next night I did see myself at the window, and I waved, and it didn't wave back. Mirrors in the house began to lie. I'd turn away and my reflection would still be staring, or smiling, or facing the wrong direction entirely. In the bathroom one morning, I caught my reflection whispering to me, but I couldn't hear it. That night, I dreamed again. But this time, I was in the attic, surrounded by empty picture frames. My reflection stepped out from one and whispered, "You're feeding it. Every sip you take, every memory you lose, you're already halfway hollow." I awoke on the floor. The attic door was open. It was everywhere now. The walls wept condensation. Footprints appeared wetly across the floor. My mouth was always dry, no matter how much I drank, and every drink tasted faintly of rust and dirt. My dreams were no longer mine. Sometimes I was Eleanor, sometimes Thaddeus, sometimes a faceless child, weeping in a room with no doors, and always, always the well waited at the centre of those dreams, calling. On the 7th night, the fireplace lit itself. A voice came from within it, not loud, intimate, almost kind. "You've done well. Isaac, most don't last this long. Most knock. Most ask to go down. I asked who it was. The flames flickered, and for a moment I saw a face in them, wet and expressionless. A single lidless eye. I am what the Harlows fed. I am what drinks when it rains. You're the last, and your thirst makes you sweetest. I screamed, threw water on the fire. It laughed and hissed and spat black smoke, but it was still there, coiled behind the heat. I tried to leave. The roads had become a loop. I drove east for hours and returned to the same rusted mailbox. I smashed every mirror in the house, but the reflections stayed. On the windows, the glass of picture frames, the slick sheen of spilled water on the floor. I saw versions of me, thinner, taller, crawling through hallways that weren't real. I stopped drinking, but the water came on its own. Glasses full when I turned away, rain trickling down the walls into my mouth while I slept. And in my dreams, the well began to open. I gave up. On the 9th day, I walked barefoot into the rain and approached the well. No wind, no birds, just the hollow air and that endless rhythmic whisper. Thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. I climbed over the stone rim and lowered myself into the darkness. The air grew colder. The stone turned to flesh. The walls pulsed. And then I was falling, not down, but inward. I landed on a surface that felt like skin stretched tight over bone. It wasn't dark, not really. A faint blue light glowed from veins in the walls. Shapes moved behind them, long-limbed, weeping figures. Each one looked a little like someone I'd seen in the portraits. At the center of the chamber was a pool, still, silver. When I looked in, I saw myself. But I was much older, and I smiled and whispered, "Now, drink." I don't remember swallowing, but I woke in the attic, dry and shaking, memory fluttering in and out like moths under a lamp. I couldn't remember my last name. I couldn't remember the faces of my parents, but I remembered the well. I remembered him, and he was inside me now. Every time I breathed, I heard him whisper. Every time it rained, I could see the water in my veins begin to shimmer. I was becoming the house, or maybe I always had been. I write this on the last page of the last journal in the attic. I am no longer Isaac Finch. I am the taste on your tongue when you wake from drowning. I am the knock you hear behind you during the third storm. I am the guest who never leaves. I am what lives in every mirror, just out of sync. If you inherit the house, don't come. If you come, don't drink. If you drink, don't dream. And if you dream, don't follow the hand. Because at the bottom of the well, you won't find water. You'll find yourself. In 1965, the US government began a psychological study codenamed Project Somnus, an experiment to test the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation. The volunteers, 5 healthy men, ages 25 to 40, they were promised $15,000 each for 30 days in isolation. The setup, a sealed observation room inside Black Pine Asylum, deep in the mountains of Colorado. Monitored via microphones and two-way mirrors. They were administered a gas through the vents, a stimulant developed during the Cold War, designed to eliminate the brain's need for REM sleep. They called it the wake compound. For the first 3 days, everything went smoothly. The men, labelled subjects A through E, were sociable at first, talking, laughing, playing cards, swapping stories. By day 4, the laughter turned to arguments. By day 6, they had grown paranoid, whispering in corners, covering the mirrors with blankets. Subject C stopped speaking entirely. He stared into the corner for hours, occasionally muttering numbers under his breath. Day 7, the cameras picked up strange movements, twisting of the joints, sudden contortions during sleep attempts. Except none of them were sleeping. Their eyes never closed. On day 8, the gas was increased. That's when they started scratching. They scratched the walls, the floor, their arms, their necks. Subject A tore the nails from his fingers on day 9. When asked why through the intercom, he smiled and whispered, "I can hear them inside my skin. They want out." Subject B began taping notes to the glass, disturbing sketches of faces with no mouths, only gaping black eyes. Subject D sang lullabies to the vents, asking the gas to please go away. Subject E was missing. The camera feed showed his bed empty for 12 hours before anyone noticed, but the door had never opened, and yet he was gone. The lead psychologist, Dr. Everett Marrow, insisted the experiment continue. "We're on the verge of discovery," he wrote in his journal. "They are approaching the edge. What lies beyond sleeplessness? What does the brain become when the dream dies?" On day 10, Subject C began chewing through his cheek. By morning, he'd removed most of the flesh from the right side of his face. Still smiling. Dr. Marrow ordered the compound increased one last time, and that's when the power went out. At 3:17 a.m., every camera, microphone and lock in the ward shut down. The team upstairs scrambled to restore power. When they got it back on, exactly 11 minutes later, the room was wrong. All 5 beds were empty. Blood smeared the walls in spirals. On the ceiling, written in the gas vent soot, were the words, "They took sleep away. Now it takes back." Only one subject was found. Subject D, curled in the corner, whispering to something no one else could see. He died before he could be moved. But not before he screamed a single phrase again and again. "Don't blink. It eats in the dark." The survivors of the research team claimed they saw shapes on the tapes, figures standing just outside the light, things that moved between frames but never within them. Dr. Marrow locked himself inside the control room with the original recordings. He wouldn't come out. Days later, his body was found slumped in a chair, eyes wide open, mouth agape, like he'd died mid-screaming. The tapes had been erased, except one. That final recording, labelled Day 12, was found buried under floorboards. In it, Dr. Marrow speaks slowly, as if trying not to wake something nearby. The compound didn't stop sleep. It killed the dream state. It opened the door. REM is not rest, it's containment. We've always dreamed to cage it, the part that watches us when we sleep, the part that remembers when we were prey. He goes quiet. Then it came through the lack, through the blank. It isn't human. It doesn't need form. It lives in the space where sleep used to be. Then the tape ends with the sound of breathing. Not his. Something wet. Close. Shifting. Project Somnus was buried. The facility sealed. 3 of the researchers disappeared in the following months. One mailed his own tongue to the Department of Defense. To this day, no one has accounted for Subject E. But security footage, long corrupted, shows frame by frame a man-shaped shadow crawling into the air vent on day 8. He was never found. The vent has since been sealed with reinforced steel. But sometimes, in the silence between power cycles, the cameras record tapping inside the walls. 3 slow knocks. Then nothing. In 2012, a leaked government memo mentioned Project Somnus among discontinued programs. The note reads, "Sleep should never be interrupted, not because we need it, because something else needs us to dream." Several test subjects with sleep disorders reported identical dreams after reading it. A room with no doors, a mirror covered in frost, and something watching from the ceiling. One subject died of a brain aneurysm during REM. An autopsy revealed a second pair of eyelids growing inside her brain tissue. They were closed, but facing inward. You're probably wondering why this matters, why you're still reading, why your mouth feels dry, why your eyes haven't blinked in a while. You're not tired, are you? That's how it begins. The subtle buzz, the absence of rest, the humming silence, a feeling just behind your thoughts, a hollow space, something watching from inside your skull, eager to take your dreams and open its own. So when you close your eyes tonight, remember, it's not the dream that matters. It's what dreams protect you from. Don't skip sleep. Don't stay up too long. And whatever you do, don't listen for breathing in the silence. Because once you hear it, it hears you too.